Ultimately, though, the most powerful check we have on Trump's authoritarianism is not the Congress, it is not the courts, it is the American people. It is all of us, each of us. Fear is Donald Trump's weapon of choice. Divide and conquer is his one repugnant strategy. Law firm against law firm, media outlet against media outlet, neighbor against neighbor. He counts on us being too scattered to oppose him, too scared of a truth social media post or an executive order, or the very real threat of physical harm for anyone to push back. So there's something incredibly powerful when someone looks King Donald in the eye and says simply and with her whole being, piss off.
Whereas for years, Representative Schiff abused his trust by citing evidence of collusion that, as is clear from reports by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz, and Special Counsel
People often warn that arrogance can backfire. One moment, you're at the height of power, confidently standing in front of everyone and boldly telling the President of the United States to, in his own words, piss off. The next, you're facing the harsh reality of a massive $16 million penalty. Adam Schiff believed his status made him immune, that his role gave him the freedom to say anything without repercussions. But then Paulina Luna stepped onto the House floor with evidence in hand, and she made it clear she intends to hold him accountable. Stay tuned, because this is a moment you won't want to miss.
Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I seek recognition to give notice of my intent to raise a question of privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. H-Res 49, censuring and condemning Adam Schiff, representative of California's 30th Congressional District. Whereas the allegation that President Donald Trump colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 presidential election has been revealed as false by numerous in-depth investigations, including the recent report by Special Counsel John Durham, which documents how the conspiracy theory was invented, funded, and spread by President Trump's political rivals. Whereas Representative Adam Schiff, who served as a ranking minority member and then chairman of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence of the House of Representatives, HPSCI occupied positions of extreme trust, affording him access to sensitive information unavailable to most members of Congress. Whereas for years, Representative Schiff abused his trust by citing evidence of collusion that, as is clear from reports by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz, and Special Counsel Durham, does not exist. Whereas by repeatedly telling these falsehoods, Representative Schiff purposely deceived his committee, Congress, and the American people. Whereas Representative Schiff lent credibility to the Steele dossier, a collection of debunked collusion accusations funded by President Trump's political rivals, by reading false Steele allegations into the congressional record at HPSCI hearing on March 20th, 2017. Whereas once again abusing his privileged access to classified information, Representative Schiff composed a false memo justifying the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act FISA warrant application on Trump associate Carter Page, which Inspector General Horowitz later found riddled with 17 major mistakes and omissions, provoking FISA court presiding judge Rosemary Collyer to state unequivocally that the Federal Bureau of Investigation misled the FISC. Whereas by publicly smearing Carter Page as a Russian collaborator and justifying spurious investigations of him, Representative Schiff contributed to the gross violations of a United States citizen's civil liberties, thereby committing the very abuses the HPSCI is tasked with identifying and thwarting. Whereas HPSCI ranking minority member and chairman Representative Schiff behaved dishonestly and dishonorably on many other occasions, including by falsely denying that his staff coordinated with a whistleblower to launch the first impeachment of President Trump. Whereas part of his impeachment efforts during an HPSCI hearing on September 26, 2019, Representative Schiff recited a false concocted rendition of a phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Whereas Representative Schiff exploited his position on HPSCI to encourage and excuse abusive intelligence investigations of Americans for political purposes. Whereas Representative Schiff used his position and access to sensitive information to instigate a fraudulently based investigation, which then he used to amass political gain and fundraising dollars. Whereas the American taxpayers paid $32 million to fund the investigation into collusion that was launched as a result of Representative Schiff's lies, misrepresentations, and abuses of sensitive information. And whereas it is determined by an investigation conducted by the Committee on Ethics that Representative Schiff lied, made representations, and abused sensitive information, he should be fined the amount of $16 million. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives censures and condemns Adam Schiff, representative of California's 30th Congressional District, for conduct that misleads the American people in a way that is not befitting of an elected member of the House of Representatives. Representative Adam Schiff will forthwith present himself to the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Schiff will then be censured with a public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and the Committee on Ethics shall conduct an investigation into Representative Adam Schiff's lies, misrepresentations, and abuses of sensitive information.
Under Rule 9, a resolution offered from the floor by a member other than the Majority Leader or the Minority Leader as a question of the privileges of the House has immediate precedence only at a time designated by the Chair within 2 legislative days after the resolution is properly noticed. Pending that designation, the form of the resolution noticed by the gentlewoman from Florida will appear in the record at this point. The Chair will not at this point determine whether the resolution...
Let's go back to the opening moment. Adam Schiff stood at the podium with a tone that critics would describe as morally certain, speaking about truth, power, and the dangers of authoritarianism. He argued that the ultimate safeguard against abuse of authority is the American public and urged people to resist deception. To his opponents, however, that message rang hollow. They point to his past role on the Intelligence Committee, where he repeatedly said he believed there was strong evidence of Russian collusion, claims they say were later undermined by subsequent investigations, including the Durham Review. Schiff made numerous media appearances over the years, warning of serious implications and helping shape a narrative that deeply divided public opinion. His critics argue that this contributed to fear, distrust, and polarization among Americans. Then came his sharp remark directed at Donald Trump, telling him to piss off, a moment supporters saw as blunt honesty but detractors viewed as unprofessional and theatrical. Then the focus shifted to Paulina Luna. Rather than delivering only a speech, she introduced a formal resolution. Supporters say her move represented an attempt to push for accountability instead of just rhetoric. The resolution outlined her position in detail, citing the findings of the Durham investigation, concerns about FISA surveillance practices involving figures such as Carter Page, and the overall financial cost of the years-long probe. She also highlighted the tens of millions of dollars spent on the investigation, arguing that public officials who promote claims that lead to costly government actions should face consequences if those claims are later discredited. Her proposal included a suggested $16 million penalty, symbolically half of the reported investigation cost, as a way, in her view, to send a message about responsibility. To Luna's supporters, the resolution represented a rare attempt to impose tangible consequences in Washington. To Schiff's defenders, however, it was seen as a political maneuver. Either way, the clash illustrated the deep divisions in Congress and showed how battles over past investigations continue to shape today's political landscape.